Welcome to the Dead Rising Iceberg. Sorry this video is so short, I was called for jury duty this week. Credit to Wilfred Cthulhu for making this iceberg. Driving through tunnels. Driving through tunnels is a very popular thing to do. Just killing all of these zombies, and sure, it's a good way to level up, but mainly people do it to get the genocider achievement, which requires you to kill 53,594 zombies. The population of the town that Dead Rising takes place in. Bathroom shortcut. There's a really weird shortcut you can get in Dead Rising after killing the clown psychopath. Once you kill him, you can follow the survivor named Greg to the women's bathroom, where if you stand up on the corner of this sink, in the mirror, there is going to be a shortcut that lets you get to Paradise Plaza. A very weird shortcut, and well, why does Greg know about this? Jill's Sandwiches. Jill's Sandwiches is the name of a sandwich shop in Dead Rising, and if you're not a Resident Evil fan, you may just walk by this not thinking much about it. But if you are, you may get the reference. In Resident Evil 1, there's a very goofy line that's become very popular in the fanbase and become a meme. This.
Hey, what's going on?
Jill? Is that you, Jill?
Barry, help me please. The door won't open.
Hurry!
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
So yeah, Capcom made this entire restaurant just because of that one line. Also at some point I'm going to do a Resident Evil Iceberg. Tier 2. Wii version. Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop is the Wii version of Dead Rising. But Dead Rising was made for the 360. Sure, this can't run too well, right? Yeah, it's a lot worse. A lot of the features are completely missing and zombies load in very slowly. Things like even being able to smash windows you can't do. Certain animations look worse, and even whole psychopaths are cut from the game. And if you don't know, psychopaths are like the biggest part of this game, coming across a lot of wacky different people with their own stories that try and kill you, being the main bosses of the game. Well, there's 8 in the Wii version, and in the normal there's 15, so quite a few were cut. Hidden intro. If you sit on the press start screen for long enough, you'll get a secret intro that was used in some advertisements for the game. Nothing really special about this intro. It was used as the intro for the remaster that came out, well, today as I record this, but yeah, not so secret anymore. Beta Frank. Yeah, this was Frank in the beta of Dead Rising. Not a whole lot to say for this one, aside from, well, I'm pretty glad they changed it. I don't know why, he just looks so much worse. 2005 beta's footage. The beta of Dead Rising was a very different game. Sure, it still had wacky weapons you'd use to fight against zombies, but it would have had a much darker tone as well. Aside from this, well, the beta looked graphically way different. Sure, some things like textures looked different, some HUD elements, but as previously mentioned, yeah, Frank looked a lot worse. Frank made to be the opposite of Leon. Dead Rising was being made around the time Resident Evil 4 had released, and the main characters of both games couldn't be any different from each other. Leon is the stereotypical, attractive main protagonist who's morally just and always wants to save the day, while Frank West is just a guy. Nothing bad with that, he's just a guy trying to survive in the mall with bit of an addiction to taking photos of everything, with being a photojournalist, sometimes taking a couple pictures of, well, people dying, so not as morally just as Leon. With Frank West being a normal guy, it really makes the whole comedic feel of the game a lot better. Like, imagine if Leon was in Dead Rising and he came across the clown. With all of his weird dialogue in the original Resident Evil 4, well, what would he say? No thanks, bro? So yeah, Frank was a much better decision for a personality in this game. Tier 3. Meant to be a launch title. Yeah, Dead Rising was originally gonna launch the same day as the Xbox 360. Its planned release date being November 22nd, 2005, but was delayed to August of 2006. So yeah, this game got delayed quite a bit. That's one of the reasons the beta is so interesting for this game. Capcom thought it was in a good place to launch 9 months prior to its actual release. So the build back then was pretty well developed, just obviously not developed enough. Nostalgic mall atmosphere. Dead Rising is like a time capsule. Aside from the humor and some references in the original game, the mall is very different from any mall you'd see nowadays. Sure, some malls today are pretty interesting, but nothing really compares to Dead Rising's mall. With how many stories there are and how it's laid out, there's a weird nostalgic feeling that I don't know, hasn't been felt in a long time. Sure, it's a video game mall and it has a really weird layout, but there's something about the atmosphere of Dead Rising that can't really be matched. I think it's a mix of the music, graphics, time it came out. It's just a perfect bundle for nostalgia. Original darker tone. As previously mentioned, Dead Rising was going to be a darker game, but not a polar opposite game. The atmosphere was going to be different and certain character deaths would have been different as well. Obviously, I'm not going to say those for spoilers with the remaster coming out. I'd say the main thing that made the original beta seem much darker was mainly the graphics. In the full release of the game, it was much brighter and seemed a lot sillier, while in the beta it was a lot darker and well, Beta Frank made that whole trailer a lot darker. Mystery behind True Eye Cult. The True Eye Cult is a unique part of Dead Rising. They're the only set of enemies that has zero relation to the zombies, and we don't really know who they are. All the lore of the True Eye Cult is from 2 cinematics, where all we're shown is that they're a cult that wants to get rid of everyone that's not them to achieve salvation. And some people may dislike this, but I think it makes them all the more intriguing. If the sequel games to Dead Rising were handled better, or if there was other pieces of media about this cult, I think it would make for some really good story. But well, that didn't really happen. But even if we don't get any other pieces of media about this cult, just makes them more mysterious. Of course, we want to know everything about them. I mean, they're very unique looking and have a pretty unique psychopath story. But yeah, we just don't really know anything. Unattainable weapons. Dead Rising has a lot of models for weapons that were never fully implemented into the game, some of which can't be spawned in, and the ones that you can spawn in don't really work well. They use a pistol animation for holding them, since that's the default weapon animation. But yeah, there's just tons and tons of weapons that were never fully put into the game. And my favorite is the Unknown White Gun, or Beam Gun, as it's called if you run a very early version of the game and spawn it in. Its texture is white on the model since the texture was never fully implemented, but in the game it flickers if you spawn it in. When you fire the gun in this older version, it seems to just crash the game. So it would have been amazing to see, but it was really never even worked on very much. Box art is insane. The box art for Dead Rising is pretty insane. Specifically, the first ever made box art for the game, which is also the most iconic. The North American box art. Aside from the crazy amount of zombies and Frank using a TV to kill them, it uses some weird images as part of it, specifically screenshots from the beta of Dead Rising. And when you zoom into certain parts, it's oddly clear to see. I mean, right here you see 2 names of survivors in the final box art. And yeah, you'll never unsee those green names now. Aside from that, a lot of this box art is photoshopped from different locations, as it seems like it's in the main plaza, but it's pretty much every aspect of the mall just all thrown into one. Just some wild box art that I'm very surprised somehow those names got into the final art of it. Tier 4. Frank's limp. A lot of people are confused why Frank has a limp in the game, and well, it's because he jumped out of a helicopter in the beginning. Not super complex or anything, but it does affect his walking animation, which I think is a nice feature that Capcom didn't need to include, but it's nice seeing it. Mall's layout makes no sense. The mall of Dead Rising is weird. It doesn't really make any sense. Sure, it's great for a video game map, but having a massive park in the middle of it is really odd. And the layout of the shops don't really make sense either. It's all extremely spread out and requires you to go outside into a park to get to most places of the mall in any decent time. Just a weird layout for a map. Frank West for Smash. Prior to the launch of every Smash game, a lot of people beg for different video game characters to make it in. I mean, if you could have Solid Snake going against Simon Belmont, who wouldn't be in the game? Well, with how many characters there are in video games, a lot. And a lot of Dead Rising fans really wanted Frank West in the game. I would say it would never happen with how violent Dead Rising is, but I mean they have Snake and characters from Street Fighter, so I'm not sure where their line on violence would be. Plus, Capcom has Mega Man in there, so I doubt they're very closed off for any collabs. But I think if Capcom were to put another character into Smash, it would most likely be a character from Resident Evil, just with how much more iconic of a franchise that is. And yeah, that's the end of the video. Again, sorry it's shorter. I got called for jury duty. The guy had like 15 felonies. It was wild. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day, week, month, and I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully Dead Rising 5 will eventually come out.